Hello and welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. Joining me right now from Capitol Hill is Senator Marco Rubio. Senator, it's great to have you back with us.
Thank you, John.
All right, so tell us a little bit about this compromise that's apparently been reached in the Senate on border security. This, of course, would be a huge step forward on the immigration bill. Senator Corker of Tennessee says it will include more money in addition to the $6 billion already specifically marked for border security in the bill. And there's also this unnamed Senate aide out there saying that this would provide an unprecedented deployment of law enforcement and border patrol security to the U.S.-Mexico border. Can you give us some more details on this compromise and how much closer you feel like the bill is to passage?
Well, first of all, let me explain why border security is so important. You know, we understand America is a special country, and because of that, people want to come here from all over the world. In fact, people are willing to risk their lives to come illegally. And while we sympathize with that, we are a sovereign country. We have a right to secure our border. Every country in the world secures their border or tries to secure their border. Why should the United States not be expected to do so? So that's why border security has become so important and why it's such a predominant issue in this debate. Now, what I've been saying for weeks is, if we don't improve the border security parts of this bill, we are not going to be able to pass it because the American people won't support it, and rightfully so. And that's what I've been hearing for weeks. People are saying, I understand we have to do immigration reform, but you got to get the border secured. And that's what this will endeavor to do. You're talking about literally doubling the size of the current Border Patrol. You're talking about completing 700 miles of fencing. You're talking about requiring the full completion of E-Verify, something conservatives have been calling for years, fully completing a tracking system so visitors can't overstay their visas, and fully deploying technology like ground sensors and cameras and night vision and radars and even drones that will help those border agents that we're adding to apprehend people that are illegally crossing the border. This is a massive surge of resources to our border. In an ideal world, we wouldn't need that, but right now we have a problem that we have to confront, and until that problem is solved, we have to have measures like this in place. So that's what this is really about, and I think it's very promising. It is a
And that is what everybody's talking about. You know, of course, you mentioned the additional offense on the border, also and the additional personnel on the border. Some Republicans have also pushed for benchmarks on border enforcement, such as a 90% success rate for stopping illegal immigration. Is that issue still a sticking point? Are there benchmarks in this bill now in terms of...
Well, yeah, it remains the goal of this legislation, as we've said, to be able to see everything that's happening on the border and to stop 9 out of 10 people that are crossing it. Quite frankly, 10 out of 10 people, if we can get to that point. But when you look at the resources that we're putting into border security, I'm not sure what other things are available to us at this point. We're doubling the size of the Border Patrol. We're going to be adding or completing those 700 miles of fence, and including, you know, replacing some of the fencing that's in place right now, which is nothing but vehicle barriers, and replacing that with an actual fence. You're also talking about 40% of our illegal immigration are people that are coming legally and then they stay after that expires. We're now going to know who they are because we're going to have an entry-exit tracking system. And for those who are here illegally, they're going to struggle to find a job because we're going to require mandatory E-Verify. And that's got to be in place fully across the American economy in less than 4 years. So this is a dramatic improvement over what we have in place today. And I want everybody, I know that there are conservatives that are very troubled by this. They have no trust in the federal government. They've heard these promises before, but never before have those promises been linked to something else that guarantees it's going to happen. Here it is. All these things I've described to you, the border agents, the E-Verify, the entry-exit, the fence, the technology, all of those things have to be in place before anyone who has violated our immigration laws can become a lawful, legal, permanent resident of the United States 10 years from now. All of those things have to happen. That's why it's a hard trigger. And we think that's what's going to guarantee that once and for all, we're going to have measures like this in place.
Well, we'll wait to see what the reaction is going to be from folks like Steve King on the House side, who has really stood up against this bill. You know, despite also a mostly positive report from the Congressional Budget Office, which said the bill would cut the deficit and help grow the economy, there, of course, are still plenty of far-right conservatives, like Congressman King, who point out that the CBO report said that the bill will only stop about 25% of illegal immigration. As the bill stands now, and with this compromise that's now been reached, what do you think is a realistic number to expect? I know you said the goal might be 90%, but from a realistic standpoint, what can we expect when it comes to a reduction in illegal?
We want to prevent any future waves of illegal immigration. That's the goal here, not 25, 30, 50. We want to stop any future waves as high as we can prevent it. And quite frankly, if you have an E-Verify system, if people get the message that you can't find a job in America if you're there illegally, they're going to stop coming. If people get the message that you can't overstay visas in the United States because we're going to know who you are and you won't be able to find a job, they're going to stop doing it. If people get the message that the border is not easy to cross anymore because the U.S. is protecting it, people are going to stop trying. All those things are going to be effective. But here's the other point. What if we do nothing? What if this bill fails, nothing happens on immigration reform, then you know what stays in place? What we have right now. That means 100% of the people that are scheduled to come here illegally will come illegally. That's what that means. And we won't be, who they are. We won't know when they came. We don't know where they are. Plus the 11 million or whatever the number may be, the CBO says it's about 8 million, who are here illegally now. We don't know who they are. They're not paying taxes. They're working. They're living in this country. Some have been here longer than 10 years. If we don't have these things, we'll never know who they are. They'll never pay taxes. And that's not good for our country either. So, John, I understand Congressman King and people like him that are just really frustrated that the most generous country in the world has been taken advantage of on its immigration laws. I understand that. The decisions that led to that happened when I was in 9th grade. What I'm trying to do now, I know this is not a popular issue. Believe me, I know it's not a popular issue. And I don't think this is going to earn me, any, as I said last night, any parades or accolades. I'm honestly doing this because I truly, in my heart, believe that what we have in place right now is a complete disaster, and it is hurting this country that I owe so much to. And I just feel a moral obligation to fix it, to do what I can to try to fix it. That's what this is about for me.
Yeah, clearly you stuck your neck out here. And Senator, the last question for you, and I'm sure you've heard, or at least heard about Allen West's comments on a radio show yesterday. You also maybe saw some of those signs, people holding up on Capitol Hill yesterday at the Tea Party rally against this immigration bill, calling you a rhino. But when Allen West was asked about if you should be primaried in 2016, West did not say no to a possible run against you. And then he went on to bash the immigration bill. I know you don't want to talk about 2016, but this does sort of prove what some Democrats say, at least. And when you or other Republicans try to compromise on almost anything, there are people farther to the right who want to try to take you down. Are these folks, these far-right conservatives, maybe being too naive, especially those who are outside of Washington, when it comes to the realities of getting something done on the Capitol?
Look, John, I think people are frustrated, and I do understand it. That's why I've spent 2 years studying this issue. I understand that frustration. Many people have been through these battles before where they were made promises, they're going to build a fence, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. It never happens. And people have a right to be distrustful of government. The only thing I can say is there's no political gain in this for me. If I was thinking about politics, there's no way I would have taken this issue on. I honestly have studied this issue. By the way, I live surrounded by this issue in Florida. I see all the horrible things that illegal immigration does to our country. I also understand the human element of it, and you feel compassionate for individuals that face these circumstances, even if they violated our laws. But above everything else, I view what we have right now as hurting this country. And I know that if we don't do anything, that's what stays in place. I could understand if what we had in place right now was really good and we were trying to change it. But that's not the case. What we have in place right now is really bad. And not doing anything would be leaving that in place. That's what motivates me. And that's what I was elected to do. If I don't come up here and try to fix problems that I have a chance to fix, then what am I here for? And I know that people are frustrated because they're distrustful of government, and some of that anger will be directed towards me, and I accept it with humility. People have a right to speak out. I would remind people I agree with them on virtually every other issue if you look at my voting record and what I stand for. But on this issue, I've reached the conclusion that we have to act and do something if we can do it the right way. And I think after this amendment here today, we can argue very strongly that this bill does more for border security than any measure that's ever been proposed, at least in my opinion.
Well, we know this compromise is going to help get more support for the bill. Does it have 70 votes right now, do you think?
Well, I don't know how many votes it'll get. It'll certainly increase the support that the bill has, in my opinion. I think it gets us closer to that number where we have significant support. And I think that the point being that most Republicans, I know that there's a lot of anxiety out there and frustration, but most Republicans, most conservatives, if you look at not just polling, but anecdotally in conversations that I've had, most people want to fix this problem. They're ready to fix this problem. All they ask is that this doesn't happen again, that we don't have another wave of illegal immigration in the future. And that's why I've pushed so hard for the last 3 weeks, despite complaints by people who don't want to see it happen, that we improve the border security in this bill. And this is a dramatic.
Okay, we're wrapping up. Senator, thank you so much for your time. We'll look forward to hearing what happens with this bill as the announcement comes out today. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much, John.